It's past 9 o'clock. Welcome back to the program. And of course, everyone knows Sheree Clark from Fork in the Road fame. And last week she gave us a rundown on certain kind of nuts, what we can do with the nuts. And then eventually the stuff she shared was so popular that she's back with more nut stuff, so to speak. But on the same topic, and question we have for you, young lady, are you going to be able to talk about one ingredient stuff for 2 weeks in a row, or is this nut thing we're talking about we're talking about?
All right,
no?
whatever. No, this topic is so broad and so complete that I could go on. I could do it 3, but don't tempt me.
It's nuts.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So last week we featured dark nuts.
Yes.
And now we're going more towards
to the
lighter nuts.
Yep.
Okay, so that makes sense.
So many people contacted me afterwards asking for the recipe, asking questions, and I was debating whether or not it was just too much, and I said, hey, let's go.
Okay, let's review real quick.
Let's get nuts.
Dark nuts would be what we talked about last week, which are
walnuts, pecans, Brazil nuts kind of swing both ways. They could be dark or light.
What about pistachios?
Pistachios, I would classify those as a lighter nut.
Okay.
But I would put almonds in the darker nut category. So, and those tend to be a little bit harder, and they tend to not be necessarily as creamy as some of the lighter nuts. So we're talking today about pine nuts, cashews, macadamias, and the different things that you can do with those. And I think you're going to really like this.
Okay.
So what I did was I brought you an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert, all nut based.
Oh, cool.
All right.
All right.
We're going to start with cheese, and in your last segment I know you talked a little bit about grilled cheese sandwich. So
And you heard me say I don't eat it.
yeah, well, I'm going to twist your arm and have you eat some of this cheese today.
Okay.
So what I've done is I've made a cheese pate kind of a thing, and this is made primarily out of cashews. The other 2 ingredients in here are bell peppers and probiotics.
Oh, wow. How healthy is that?
It's awesomely healthy. So I'm going to pass this over to you, and you're just going to take a little dip. It's kind of like a spreadable cheese.
Aaron Andrews eats probiotics.
They're much better than amateur.
What do you mean by probiotics? Like what?
A probiotic is a bacteria, so don't get scared. It helps to ferment the cheese spread, so that it, just like cheese is a fermented product, it's what gives it a little bit of a tang or a twang to it. And so probiotics are things like acidophilus. There's all different kinds of strains, and they work in your gut to make the bacteria positive and helps you with digestion.
So where would you find probiotics?
Any natural food store.
Really?
Yep.
Is it granular? Is it liquid? Or
There's lots of different ways of getting it. There's the shelf-stable kind that are typically capsules, and that you can open those and dump them into the blender when you're making the dish.
do you need to open them up, or can you just take the capsules?
You can take the capsules. If you're using it to cook, I don't put the capsules in there.
Okay.
But if you're going to take it as a supplement, you would just swallow it. Isn't that awesome?
I never thought in a million years that would taste like cheese, and it does.
totally tastes like cheese.
It does.
I might have just one more.
So what are the ingredients again?
It's cashews.
Cashews.
I used both red and yellow bell pepper, primarily to give it the color, but also it gives it a little bit of a sweetness, because cheese has a little bit of a sweet, a little bit of a salty, a little bit of all that kind of a flavor, and then the probiotics.
That was really good.
That blows my mind.
So then I mixed that in the blender. I formed it into that little thing. I could have stopped right there, but I put it in the dehydrator to give it kind of a rind, as you can see. So it
I
hardens
noticed
up.
that on there, yeah.
Outside, okay.
And you know what that reminds me of? The crock type cheese that you get in the little type crocks.
That's what I was trying to think of, but I don't buy that, so I can't even think of what that is. But yes, like the port wine cheese that comes in the crock, and it looks like that. Yep. So that's your appetizer. Perfectly healthy, wonderful, and even for people with lactose issues that can't have dairy, it's a safe alternative.
As someone who doesn't cook and doesn't know much, can you grind nuts in a blender, or do you have to get a special?
You put it in the blender with a little bit of water. Yep. Because if I didn't put water in there, it would turn into cashew butter.
Okay.
And so I wanted it to be a little creamier and a little bit softer. And also, the other thing is I didn't put a ton of water in there because the bell peppers have a high water content, so they serve as you got it.
Okay.
Once you do it, it sounds like you try to get your head around it, but once you do it, it's like, aha,
got it.
Simple.
You just have to learn how much water to add.
Yeah, and it's better to err on the side of conservative. You could always add more, but once it's in there, you're not going to be able to get it out.
Right. Okay. All right, let's move on to a main course.
All right, main course in front of you. You've got some fettuccine alfredo.
Fettuccine alfredo.
Yes. Okay. So, and you know that I oftentimes will bring, and Jason loves it when I bring the spiralizer.
Yeah.
Instead of the spiralizer today, what I did was I've got the poor man's spiralizer. So if you don't have a spiralizer and you see this on the show and you want to make it at home, what you can do is just simply, if you have a vegetable peeler, all you need to do is take a zucchini, peel the outside, take the green off, and then you just simply go like that, and that's exactly how I made your fettuccine noodles.
I bought my mom a little, you can buy the little spiralizer, kind of the handheld thing. Not as good as the big one, of course.
Right.
But now all her pasta she does with zucchini now. So you've converted her.
Really?
Excellent,
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
And
Did you do anything else to it, or it's just peeling?
That's all it is. It's just lightly peeled, and it's got kind of an al dente texture. It's nice, and it's not too firm.
So you didn't cook this or anything?
Not at all. No, it's perfectly raw.
Now you can, right? You can throw it in a pan, and if you want to, you're a raw person, but you could.
And I don't know why you would.
Okay.
Because if you do that, you're going to have to add something so it doesn't stick to the pan, like an oil. So
Okay.
now you're adding fat, now you're adding calories, and if you just wanted it to be heated up, what I would probably do, for me, I would just put it on a plate and stick it in the oven and let it get warm.
Let it get warm, okay.
And because I don't microwave.
Now that sauce that you have on there, it's got a nice little kick to it. Is that garlic?
Yes, it's got a lot of garlic in it because it's an Alfredo sauce, and I love a garlicky Alfredo.
Okay.
So the ingredients in that are macadamia nuts and pine nuts. Both of them are very soft, high fat content because this is a high fat sauce. And then I used the herb thyme, which there's a little bit of I put the
Already
garnish
ate
on
that.
there. Yep. And then there's garlic and a tiny little pinch of cayenne and some little bit of lemon juice.
Nice zing to it. That's good.
It does. It
Wow.
it leaves you satisfied too. I really love it for that reason. And you can't eat a lot of it.
When you get done with the show, we'll go breathe on Boss.
I cleaned my plate. You guys didn't. Clean plate club.
Well, I want to
really
save
good,
room for
Sheree.
dessert. So what's going on with dessert?
And dessert, I often will bring you brownies. Today I've brought you blondies.
Ooh.
So this is the vanilla version of a brownie. Instead of chocolate, it's got two kinds of nuts.
Thank you.
We've used cashews and also macadamias in here as well. And then, I'm sorry, we used dark nut also, cashews and walnuts.
Oh,
in this.
okay.
And then some dates to hold it together, a little bit of my homemade vanilla, and bada bing, you've got blondies.
Got a brownie.
You can do about a million things with dates, right?
Yes, you can.
You made a lot of yummy stuff, and this is really good.
And dates should be your go-to sweetener, it seems like.
Absolutely, because they're a whole food. They've got fiber in them. They've got all the nutrients that you need, and you can blend and make into a paste. You can use them to hold things together. They're just really wonderful, and they're satisfying.
Any certain kind of date?
I use Medjool most often, and it's spelled Medjool, and I like them because they're big and they're juicy.
Okay.
But there's a ton of different varieties of dates, and so if you're going to eat them out of hand, you might choose another one. There's some that taste kind of caramely, and there's some that taste different ways. So just check and see what kind of flavor profile you like. The key is to keep them fresh, and keep them fresh by putting them in the refrigerator, buying them without the pits inside, and then using them up pretty quickly. So just buy what you
just
need.
get them pitted then already.
Buy them with the pits inside.
With the pits inside,
Yep,
okay.
so that the air doesn't get in there and so forth.
Okay.
Reminder also, when we're doing nut recipes, we store our nuts in the refrigerator, and that we buy them in the quantities that we'll be using them so that they're not around a long time. But if you get a really good deal, you can put them in the freezer, and they'll last a really long time.
And just remind us how long, if you get fresh nuts, not the kind that are bottled up and salted, but fresh nuts, how long do they usually last?
Fresh raw nuts will last in the freezer up to a year. And in the refrigerator for several months, and on the countertop, not so much.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, we had somebody Monday ask me, they saw you making almond milk, and they said, well, what do I want to do? And for brand naming, they said, I'm going to go to Hy-Vee's health department in the health section. I want to, because they have all those containers now. Can they get this ingredients to make it there?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Oh yeah.
They're going there. What do they need to look for?
To make almond
milk at home.
You would make almonds, obviously, and make sure that they are raw and unsalted.
That's the key. Okay, raw and unsalted.
Have to be raw and unsalted, and then you would soak those overnight.
Soak them too.
Soak them. They need to get soft, and we do that so that they'll break down. And I've got the website. My website has a recipe for nut milk, or the person can email me, and I'm happy to answer people's questions. What you sweeten with is your choice. I choose to sweeten with dates for the reason that we talked about, high fiber, it's a whole food, but you could sweeten with agave nectar or maple syrup or any types. You even use stevia if you chose to have a non-calorie. I like to put in a little bit of vanilla, and some people add a pinch of salt, depending on what you're going to do with the milk.
Right.
That would be me.
You put in a fistful of salt. What are you talking
Oh my
about?
goodness. So many delicious options. Who knew? If people want more information and follow you, the great things that you're doing, well, how can they do that?
They would go to www.fork-road.com, and I hope that they'll follow me on YouTube and like me on Facebook and all those things.
Thank you. As always, everything really
Great
good.
stuff.
Appreciate it.
No, I'm gonna eat
Awesome.
more of
And
this
Fork in the Road
cheese.
back on the air soon.
Back on the air soon. You got it.